Welcome to the second part of the 2023 expectations for War Thunder. Today we're going to cover ground forces. The December updates had a lot of things in motion for more trees to receive. Like the last video, we'll run through the vehicles added this update and see if any similar vehicles can be added to other nations. Again, we will find out what will actually come in a few more weeks, I think 2 or 3 more weeks. Basically by the end of this week, the end of this month, we'll already see dev blogs. Maybe even in 2 weeks, because the update usually drops in the first week of March. So anyways, without further ado, let's start. So we'll start with the infrared surface-to-air missiles. Last year saw the addition of more infrared surface-to-air missiles to each tree, with Germany receiving 2 of those with the Gepard 1A2 and the Ocelot. America got the Lab AD, USSR the Strela 10M2, and France the Santal. Now, while Gaijin hasn't promised more IR SAMs in the coming update, what they have said is that the Tor, which was introduced in the Chinese tech tree, would be added onto the Soviet tech tree as well. So that's one to look out for in terms of general SPAA. IR SPAA is just not sure. Maybe Sweden can have their Iris-T anti-air, but that's not sure it's gonna happen now or even this year. So the British are the only nation remaining to not have surface-to-air missiles in IR form. And the only candidates for general surface-to-air missiles to be added are the Rapier and the ZAHVM for South Africa, which was teased 2 years ago but has not yet been added. And another possible SPA that can be added in general, not just the IR, is the 9K37 Book missile system, which was said to be in the works according to BVVD. If added, the Book would be the longest range SAM in-game with a max range of 42 kilometers. But honestly, at the end of the day, I know the US already has a lot of it, but I just really want the M6 Linebacker. I don't mind if the Stingers are awful in War Thunder, I just want my anti-air Chadley. Now, we move on to the next possible set of vehicles to be added. Last year, America got its 5th Rank 7 Tank 3 MBT, the M1A2 SEP. Japan and China got their 4th, the TKX and WZ1001 respectively. Sweden and Israel inadvertently got theirs when Finland was added for Sweden, thus adding a 3rd top-tier MBT in their lineup through the Leopard 2A6. The Israelis got their Merkava 3s moved up to 10.7, and rightfully, since the CL3143 at 10.0 was a bit too much. Therefore, it's now in the same matchmaker as the 4B and 4M, thus giving Israel 4 top-tier MBTs. This year, the candidates to get more MBTs would be Germany and Italy, which only have 2. France that only has 3. France's best candidate for their 4th MBT is the Leclerc S XLR, a Leclerc with add-on armor packages similar in appearance to the T-72B3, and a remotely operated machine gun station. Germany has more than a few more candidates that aren't just the 2A7 yet. There's the Leopard 2 PSO, which is a Leopard 2A5 with a dozer blade and a remotely operated weapon station that can mount a machine gun or a grenade launcher. And the Leopard 2A6M, which is virtually the same but with better mine protection. For Italy, they could receive the OF-40 Mark III to get it to 4 MBTs along with the 2 Arietes and the 1 Ariete Pre-Serie. Speaking of Italy though, there's talk on the forums during the recent BR changes that while the Ariete will be up-tiered, the upcoming major update will feature combat efficiency improvement that will justify the raise to 11.0. Now, to what degree these changes will be, I'm not exactly sure, but it's most likely that the armor layout will finally be fixed with a majority of its RHA components being made into composites. That's the intended and hoped-for outcome, and the one the Ariete needs most. And if I need to insert something, hopefully we also get a production variant Frescia with ATGMs, and the Centauro too, but when it comes to Italy, Gaijin's really saving vehicles for them to future-proof them, so they're gonna add that one at a time. Speaking of the Fresha, the IFV front has a few interesting possibilities. With the finish being in the Swedish tech tree now, we'll probably receive the CV9030 fin at some point. It's a CV90 Mark II with a 30mm Bushmaster gun. The LAV-25 is also expected, considering the LAV-AD is also here. Chinese IFV should also arrive either in the form of the ZBD-86A or the ZBD-04A, with or without HJ-8s, and the subsequent AFT-10 platform. Finally, let's talk about Rank 8 tanks. With Rank 8 aircraft, the question of Rank 8 tanks is the big question on everyone's mind. Are existing top-tier tanks just going to be moved up? Are new vehicles going to be added? Oh, and of course, Rank 8 is going to be added. Gaijin's not missing the chance to put out Rank 7 tank premiums, of course. It's just too big a cash cow to give up. So, let's try and speculate the answer to that. If new vehicles are going to be added, the best candidates for Rank 8 vehicles for each nation would be the M1C80TB with a 140mm gun, the German Leopard 2 140, the Soviet Object 292 with a 152mm gun, the British Challenger 2 testbed with a 130mm Rheinmetall gun, and the French Leclerc Terminator. Or Terminator, sorry. Personally, I think upgunned MBTs will be Tier 8's meta. It's not because they're the newest tanks chronologically. War Thunder's tiers only work that way by accident. I'll talk about War Thunder's ranks and how they work in a separate video, but for now, just know it's not necessarily chronological. Anyway, if rank 7 tanks will be pushed to tier 8, I believe the meta would be like Black Knight, M1A2 SEP, Leopard 2A6, T-72B3, Merkava 4M, and Type 10. Then they're just gonna supplant it with tanks like the Challenger 3, M1A2C, Leopard 2A7A1, and T90M. So if you try to look at it, it's more APS oriented if they're just gonna push tier 7 vehicles up. But that's really the end of it. When aircraft stretch to BR Psych 13 or 14, thankfully tanks will just continue to decompress further, because there won't be any new tanks to be added after those. I know there's still stuff to fill mid-tiers like the Type 62 Guy for China, and the Soviet prototypes like the Object 770, 785, the Pancake rocket tanks, and so on. But we might also see special vehicles from other nations appear in certain tech trees like the Khalid. So in that case, we might see the Iranian Zulfikar 1 in the US tech tree based on the M60 with a 125mm gun, and the Zulfikar 3 in the Soviet tech tree with the 125mm gun, and the autoloader. And there would be more flamethrower vehicles on the way, most definitely. As we can see in the recent event, one of the decals depicted is a Object 483 flamethrower tank based on the T-55. If the Object 483 is going to be added, the US counterpart, the M67 Zippo, is to also be expected. But these are vehicles that are primarily flamethrower only, which would be useless in ground RB. The Churchill Crocodile at least has a main gun, so we're most likely going to see the TO-55 that retains a 100mm gun and replaces the machine gun instead with the flamethrower. Now, the Sherman Crocodile is definitely safe, along with the KV-8 and OT-34s, because they had their main guns. There's just no use, and it's not worth buying dedicated flame tanks just yet, unless you're collecting. So, vehicles like the Flampanzers and the M67 Zippo can wait. So until something changes, we might just have tanks with a secondary flamethrower capability like the Crocodiles. So that's about what I think is coming to tanks for 2023. There's a specific kind of vehicle that I'm not sure will be for this year, but it's a bit important. Currently, if you look at the US Ground Forces tech tree, there's a big gap between the M42 Duster at 4.7 and the M163 VADS at 7.7. The only candidate I have is to pull a Sweden and use an APC as SPAA, and that would be the M114A2 command vehicle. It's better than the GA1BOI from the Swiss, also known as the Gay Boy, or the M113 CNV from the Dutch with a 25mm Ehrlichon because the US made the M114 and it entered service with the US. The M139 is a fast-firing belt-fed 20mm based on the uh, Hispano Suiza 820. And so I think, but I'm not sure we'll see that this year. That would be the best candidate. Aside from those, there's also the talk of sub-trees that I left out, like East Germany, so I can save that for another time. However, the next video will probably be a how to implement video on the F-15, considering they're the next thing America mains are asking for and the one that will breathe new life into the Japanese tech tree. As always, thank you for watching, and this is the Dr. MD. Godspeed.